Hi, I'm attorney Robert J. Skowronski. If you're married and considering filing a bankruptcy without your partner, you've probably wondered, how will my bankruptcy affect my spouse? The good news is that in a vast majority of cases, your bankruptcy will have no impact on your spouse, none. And we know that for a few reasons. First, each person has a separate credit history and a separate score. These are not mixed simply because of marriage. There is no married person's credit report which combines your reports. That simply does not exist. And when people get married, their credit scores are not averaged. They remain separate. So for example, if you open up a credit card in your own name and do not add your spouse in any way, the credit card will never appear on your spouse's credit report. If you make your payments on that separate credit card and they're on time or even consistently late, it does not help or hurt your spouse's credit score. Separate debts are never reported on anyone else's credit report and do not affect their credit scores. This does not change because of marriage. For that same reason, if you file a bankruptcy on separate debt, it's also not noted on your spouse's credit report and will not affect their score. Now, if there is joint debt, which is where both you and your spouse are responsible for that debt, and only one spouse files a bankruptcy, there is no effect on the non-filing spouse's credit score as long as the non-filing spouse continues to pay on that debt, and that's key. Even if a creditor does report a joint debt was included in a bankruptcy on a non-filing spouse's credit report, that does not affect their credit score. However, in such a situation, I do recommend that the non-filing spouse should write the credit reporting agency to have the inaccurate notation removed. The second reason why one spouse's bankruptcy will generally not impact a non-filing spouse is because in Illinois, spouses are allowed to own property in their separate names. Added to this, the vast majority of debts, such as credit cards, car loans, mortgages, are created by contract, meaning that only the person who agreed to be liable on the debt can be affected by it. And except in rare instances in Illinois, one spouse is not required to pay the debts of the other, either through their wages or their assets. So if you open a credit card in your own name and your spouse does not agree to be jointly liable on it, the credit card can only look to you for payment. If you fail to make payment on that separate debt, the credit card cannot sue your spouse. They cannot garnish your spouse's wages. They cannot take your spouse's separate bank account, etc. The credit card can only go after the person who agreed to be liable for it. And this does not change because of marriage. And for this reason, if you file a bankruptcy, your non-filing spouse's separate property and wages cannot be taken by the court or the trustee to pay your debts. Even if you have joint property, your non-filing spouse's portion of that property cannot be taken to pay your debts. And while joint property can sometimes be sold, the non-filing spouse's portion of that property must be returned to the non-filing spouse. It is never used to pay the debts of the filing spouse. Now, what we've discussed are simply generalities. There are situations which do not fit neatly within these rules. But that's why you need an experienced attorney, such as myself, to help review your situation. When we meet, one of the things that I'm looking for is to see, will there be any effect on your non-filing spouse? Because I understand that that's a touchy subject. So if there will be an impact, I will let you know. And that's one of the reasons we have an absolutely free consultation. So if you have a debt that you can't afford to pay, call me, attorney Robert J. Skowronski, at 773-283-1600 to set up your free consultation. You can also email me. In most cases, you'll see that what you are worried about, that effect on your spouse, doesn't exist. And you'll find yourself saying, I should have filed a bankruptcy earlier.